Southern region for Ducks Unlimited. It's Ed Penny. Good morning, Ed. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Good morning.
It's good to have you. And also Associate State Director of Nature Conservancy. It is Alex Littlejohn. Alex, good to have you, sir.
Good to be here.
Let me ask you, did you guys make it in without slipping and sliding?
Absolutely clear.
Did you choose the Prius or the four-wheel drive?
Four-wheel drive, GMC.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's the only way to get here, baby.
Jeez. Well, what was the roads like? Just asking you.
It was clear.
A little bit better?
It was clear.
Yeah.
It's better today than it was yesterday.
Yeah, that's what we were worried about with the black ice tonight freezing over after we get some melt. So we'll see how that works out. All right, look, guys. This, and I mentioned it earlier, there's big news that could be formulated in this legislative session, 2021, and we're talking about the establishment of a House Bill HB 1231.
Correct.
Let me go first to Ed Penny. And Ed, tell me exactly the overscope and the overview of this bill.
Sure. So what this bill does is it creates the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund for the state of Mississippi, which is a dedicated funding source for conservation of our natural resources, the things that we care about the most.
And how's that going to work?
So what we're trying to do is dedicate a portion of the state sales tax on sporting goods. So all your hunting, fishing, camping equipment, hiking equipment, so forth. We would take a portion of that and put it on those things that we do enjoy with that kind of equipment.
I got you, Alex. We don't do that now. We and you guys don't get any money from the general fund as far as I say you guys, the agency that controls the spending as far as wildlife in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, we don't currently have a fund that's dedicated for statewide conservation programs.
Yeah.
Our sister states, neighboring states outside of just other than Louisiana, they all have very similar funds.
This is not an idea that just popped up. This has been formulated for a while, hasn't it?
No, it's been around for several decades. Some states jumped on board early on, but most of these opportunities come along and receive overwhelming support from the state of Mississippi. And we did some polling, recent polling that showed 75 to 80% of Mississippians would support this type of effort.
I mean, that's ingrained in the fabric of the state.
Oh,
we
absolutely.
love the outdoors. We really do.
That's right.
And again, as I mentioned, I don't want to sound redundant on this, but I hate where we've let the state parks go, because what a tremendous resource we have, and we've neglected those for some reason. Let me ask you this. For the money afforded, and there are several agencies that are special fund agencies. Is that the right word? Is it special funds?
That's correct. So MDWFP, Mississippi Department of Wildlife, they rely on hunting and fishing license fees. And groups like Ducks Unlimited and the Nature Conservancy also use other grant funds and private funds as well.
But sometimes those are enough to do what needs to be done. But as far as addressing problems, there's no money coming in anywhere else.
That's correct.
So when you start looking at the state parks or hiking trails or whatever it happens to be, a myriad of things, you just got to hold your hands out and beg legislative session to session, and you could be begging for 20 or 30 or 40 years.
This would help solve that problem.
Well, and the beauty about House Bill 1231 is it's not creating a new tax at all. It's diverting an existing portion of the sales tax associated with this equipment, and that's another thing that showed up in our polling, that was very, very favorable to the state of Mississippi. I
think it's important because we when I used the word transformative a little bit earlier, and it could be, but
absolutely,
when you start talking about transformative, and Trey Lamar was with me the other day, and we were talking about this, and they're ready to release the information on the possibility of us doing away with income taxes on a graduated basis. That's going to be transformative. But it's not a time to put more taxes in there. And where you have to go up, make sure it's dedicated to that effort to decrease the income tax. And you're saying that this will not increase taxes. We're not going to ask. No. You're not going to ask me to pay another $1 on my hunting and fishing license or anything else.
Absolutely not. This is not a new tax. It's a diversion of an existing portion of the sales tax only associated with the outdoor equipment that we use every day. If you're an outdoor, you can be a jogger, a bird watcher, a camper, a duck hunter, a deer hunter, a fisherman. it's that equipment that you're utilizing that this would be associated with.
I got it. And what we're talking about is if you go to the sporting goods stores and you buy a box of shells or a shotgun or a camper or whatever it happens to be, it's not going to cost you any more. Sales tax is still going to be 7%. The only difference is this fund, some of that money would go into this fund.
That's correct. And another important point there is the industry supports this, the hunting and fishing industry. Since this is not a new tax, they're not going to be passing any additional cost on to the customer.
They just have that allocated toward which, if I'm in the camping business, I like that because it's going to improve the campsites and they'll sell more campers or vice versa. So where are we now? Where is this bill and where is it going?
Well, it's currently out of the House, and I have to thank Representative Trey Lamar, Scott Bounds, Kincaid, and House leadership, Speaker Gunn, and the 114 additional members that voted 117-2 for this particular piece of legislation to pass out of the House. It's now in the hands of the Senate. And look, we've enjoyed some great successes with Senate leadership over there.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Governor Hoseman's been a tremendous conservationist, and I've happened to Ed as well. We've walked down the aisle on several successes with him in the past, and here we are again.
The history of this being done in other states. Who else does this? Does Texas do it? Because
Texas passed a bill at the ballot, so the voters voted it in. It passed overwhelmingly a couple years ago. Georgia did something very similar, and that's the model that we're using, the sporting goods sales tax model. Pretty much every southeastern state except for us and Louisiana have some sort of funding like this.
What are we talking about? What's the goal there of how much money could be garnered every year from this?
That's a great question. So we're starting at $10 million in year 2, going to $12 million in year 3, sticking with $15 million.
Well, why is that on a graduated scale? How's that?
We want to give the legislators the opportunity to test this and assess it, and we feel like that we can legitimately deliver on conservation with this.
Well, explain that to me. How do you get to that mechanism? Because what are you saying that when you get to that amount of money, you just cap it off, and that money now reverts back to where it was before? Is that basically it?
That's basically it. So what this is based on the tax code, the specific sporting goods sales tax store code, and that's what Department of Revenue is telling us. They can track this tax code.
Yeah.
And our estimates of revenue and our redirection of funding is based on that.
What will this do for, let's say, how much money could be used at the state parks or some conservation efforts to do some other things? Who makes those decisions?
Look, this is not just about state parks. If available, if this fund is established, this is for every city and county, from cities to private land conservation programs that Ed and I help support through DU and TNC, as well as opportunities on public land. The leverage opportunities that we miss out on as a state. Look, Ed and I are in this world every day, and there are federal pots of money for conservation that we cannot compete in the state of Mississippi, because those federal pots, you have to bring $1 to the table to receive $1.
So if you're going to get matching funds, we've just got nothing to match it with.
That's right. We've got nothing to match it with.
I want to talk more about this, and again, it's all up to. Well, the House did pass it.
117-2.
Yes, sir.
117-2. Was it angry duck hunters, those two, or was
no comment?
Bad shots? Is that what it was? They only played poker? What was it with those two? We'll talk more about it with Ed Penny, who's Director of Public Policy, Southern Region, Ducks Unlimited, and Alex Littlejohn, and Alex is Associate State Director, Nature Conservancy in the state of Mississippi. Back, House Bill, by the way, if you want to check it out, it's House Bill 1231. More next. This cities protect water quality, conserve area that prevent flooding, maintain public lands, conserve fish, wildlife habitat, protect working farms, maintaining strong Mississippi industry. There's just so many different things in small towns and in the rural areas, but it's not a part of the Mississippi Department of Wildlife. I want to make that clear, right, Alex?
That's correct, and I will tell you,
it's a standalone, but they do have a seat at the table. Can you explain that a little bit?
I'm gonna let Ed explain that a little bit better than I.
Ed, you are on.
Thank you. So what this is, since it's a trust fund, it's not an agency. It's separate from all existing agencies. This fund would fall within the Department of Finance and Administration, so it would have transparent and accountable oversight. There would be a board set up that would oversee implementation of projects and funding and so forth.
Tell me about the board. Who's going to appoint the people to the board?
That's another good question. So the board would be made up of several agency heads. I believe it's 5, represented by MDWFP, DMR down on the coast, Department of Ag, Soil and Water, as well as the state forester. So we'd have a variety of expertise from the public sector, and then we would also have appointees from the private sector with similar expertise and background and experience.
They serve for 6-year terms, or how long do they serve?
It's a rotating. It would be staggered starting out, and then it would be staggered every 4 years.
And all the agency heads are non-voting members. They're there simply for conservation expertise.
So I guess people apply for these grants? That's the way it's going to work?
That's right. So we talked a little bit about leveraging earlier, and I'll just step back to Georgia. 2 years ago, Georgia passed very similar legislation, and last year they awarded $20 million, and they funded projects. $6 million of that money went towards city and state parks. $3 million went towards new walking trails. Another call it another $3 million, $4 million went to private land conservation and what they call blue trails, which are just river trails. But they leveraged that $20 million. They leveraged an additional $77 million in available federal funds. So they turned 20 into almost 100. We are not doing that right now in the state of Mississippi because we don't have this available fund to be able to walk out there and go to those federal pots that are dedicated to conservation and say, hey, look, we've got $1 and we want $1. We want another one. We've got our money. We're going to put our money where our mouth is, and we want to participate and make a proposal to your fund so that we can get this money back to Mississippi.
One of the things that we were happy about is the acquisition of land that happened along the river for hunting land, and also offshore. There's some great things that could happen if we just had the money to do that. But we got a lot of people moving into the state, and one of the lesser accessibilities they have is hunting land, and that could be expanded.
Well, and it's not just hunting land. It's a lot of public land and a lot of access to public waters as well. Other states that we see growing in the southeast, for example, South Carolina, where I do a lot of work, they have lots of big industry coming there because of the quality of life is so high. Yeah. We know that Mississippi has a lot of natural resources. What we want to do is make them better, and that helps contribute to our quality of life here.
I think if you're stuck in, and I shouldn't say stuck, if you live in the rural areas of the state, you don't see what's going on sometimes on a day-to-day basis that we do. Here in the Jackson metro area, where the population is, 600,000 plus, and probably going to be more than that because you're building houses nonstop. DeSoto County, the expansion there is explosive, and it's not slowing up. On the coast, it continues to grow. We got a lot of people who came in and haven't left after Katrina.
That's right.
And it continues to grow. So we got some great spots, and we have a lot of young people coming in. Right. And beside the hunting and fishing, bike trails, jogging trails, a lot of different things that we want to be able to do, but it just never gets done.
Well, it never gets done here because we don't have the available resources to pursue those matching pots of funds at the federal level that say, hey, we'd love to invest this money in Mississippi, but Mississippi's going to have to step up and put some money on the table as well, and that's exactly what this fund does. And to Ed's point on the public land piece, 90% of Mississippi's privately held, and most of those landowners have a conservation or stewardship minded. We talked about it earlier when we jumped on. Our sense of place in this state is so strong that when you say conservation to the landowner, we might as well be talking about your preacher or the coffee or the news of the state. I mean, it's just synonymous with our day-to-day efforts. So there are private land opportunities that we're going to have as well that we can pursue through this fund, if it's established.
It's a nonprofit, of course.
No. It's not a nonprofit. No, sir. This is a standalone, independent board that would issue out the funds through a grant application process.
Competitive grant program.
That's right.
Could other people donate to that? I mean, if somebody died and they were a billionaire, could they leave money to that? Is that?
I think Alex would appreciate some of that at the Nature Conservancy. I know Ducks Unlimited would as well.
We would like to talk to them about their estate plans before that happens.
We have the list of here. We'll give it to you before you leave.
Ducks.org.
Yeah, that's right. Nature.org. Let's go ahead and plug those.
How was the season since it's over as far as ducks?
Duck season, it was tough. It was tough.
It was.
We got the weather about 3 weeks too late. About a month too late.
Yeah, I will tell you, if this weather right here would have been happening in duck season, you probably wouldn't have had Ed and I in this room. I can just offer that.
Well, you probably had to buy some new waders, some insulated waders better than you had because it was ice all over the place.
Well, our dear friends at Drake, they make those every day, so.
Well, we got, and again, for people who just joined us, let me go back over this, but I want you to remember the House bill. It is HB, and they're working with this bill in the Senate, right?
They are. It's now to the Senate.
1231. It's
House
in the
Bill
Senate.
1231.
Tell me the time factor on this. How long do we have before the Senate does something on this?
So it's kind of like draft day. We're on the clock, right? So it's 2 weeks to get it out of committee, and that started 2 days ago. So we're in 12 days to get it out of committee, and then another week to get it off the floor.
What committee are we talking about?
Where we're waiting to see where it's referred.
It hasn't been referred yet.
That's right.
It's not one of those would be double referred, is it?
Well,
it could
be. It was in the House, and we got it out of both of those committees unanimously in support. And look, I can't speak high enough of Reps Bound, Kincaid, and Lamar on their support and leadership here, and Speaker Gunn and the 114 members in the House that voted for it. I mean, an additional 114 members.
This is a good bill.
I do want to do this because I want to go over it one more time on this one just so people understand what we're talking about. It's no additional taxes. You can do this. They didn't do it in Georgia. They didn't have any additional taxes in Texas. They were able to get money to do needed projects with dedicated. And the way this works is that when you go to let's say Academy Sports or your local sports place or whatever is on this, and I guess it's anything on sports.
Yeah, it's anything outdoor related equipment wise.
Would that be campers and things like that?
Yeah, Ed hit on it earlier. There's actually in the Department of Revenue, there's a code that's associated with these particular items, and there is a laundry list that falls under that: binoculars,
life jackets,
everything. Yes, sir. It runs the gamut.
So anytime that code hits, a portion of that money would be dedicated.
That's right.
To this trust fund.
That's correct.
And you would be capped out the first year, according to this bill, as far as HB 1231 at $10 million.
$10 million.
Second year,
$12 million.
Third year,
$15 million.
And then you go up to 20.
Goes to 15, and we can keep $20 million in the account.
And
you can keep 20
every year
in the account
That's right.
after that.
That's right.
Is there a mandatory disbursement that has to be made on a regular basis?
That's what Ed was getting at too. We cannot have any more than $20 million unobligated in the account.
So that's the cap on it. Okay.
This would go to good projects. We would not be funding poor projects. This would be a competitive program.
All right, guys, what do we need to do now? We just need to have the folks in the state and this audience, of course, contact their senators now.
Yes, sir.
That'd be great. Show some support.
The industry is so supportive of this. National Shooting Sports Foundation, which is the trade association for the firearm industry and hunting industry, they've written letters of support. We've got such a strong background in Mississippi with Mossy Oak. Primos Game Calls is here. We expect them to be reaching out very soon and telling folks that they support this as well.
Could be like a public firing range, too, is a possibility, isn't it?
And look, it's not just you may not hunt or fish. You may just be a bird watcher. You may be a jogger. You may want to have your kids at the city park. This hits on all those items.
Absolutely.
This is a good bill.
Guys, thank you. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
One more time, the House bill number is?
1231.
Call your local senators, ask them and say, look, are you in favor or not of HB 1231?
That's it.
We would suggest you be in favor of it. No new taxes, just a slight allocation or reallocation of the funds that are already there, right?
Yes, sir.
That's exactly
we
right.
got it down. Anything else you want to mention?
Thank you for the chance to talk about it.
Let's hope next duck season's a little bit better.
All right, let's do some. Make sure you got your four-wheel drive engaged when you leave. Okay.
Ed and I are going to go get on our sleds and head back home.